Mhm. Okay. Hello, everybody, as you are joining us. Welcome to our very special event tonight. I'm going to give everybody a few moments to get logged in and get all their videos running, and we will start in just a moment. As you are coming in, we'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for joining us tonight. We're very excited for our very special guests, Dr. Rick Gold and Yuval Ron. Right. So again, I'm just going to give it another minute or two, or another moment or two, I should say. Right. Good. All right, and we see everybody as you're coming in. Welcome. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Right. And this is the part of our 30-year anniversary series. This year, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary at the California Institute for Human Science, and we're very excited tonight to present Ancient Wisdom and Modern Science, Explorations in Sound Healing. My name is Nicole Ryle, and I'm the Director of Development and Public Programs here at CIHS. CIHS Enlighten is the sector of our institution that offers certificate programs, continuing education, and community offerings, and we are delighted tonight to continue this series. Throughout this year, we've been celebrating our 30 years by hosting distinguished and inspiring guests who are doing very notable work and research in the mind, body, spirit fields. These events are made possible by your donations, and we thank you for your support. You can see this text code behind me at any point during our presentation or after. You can donate with this really convenient text code listed on my screen. And I'll also provide a direct link if you'd like to do it online instead. And also, I would love to mention that Meta Mindfulness Music, which is Rick and Yuval's music production company, has gifted 2 very special CD sets for the 2 highest donations. So we're very excited about that. And I just wanted to share my screen for a moment so you can see these really 2 great offerings. We have Ancient Wisdom and Modern Sounds for Health and Healing. And this is based off of Chinese medicine, and it's a 7 CD set. So really excellent for healing and health. And then we also have Healing Sounds for Yoga, Mindfulness, and Creativity. And this CD set is a 4 CD set, and that's based off of Ayurvedic healing and science. So we hope that that gives you some incentive to donate tonight. And at this time, I will turn it over to our CIH president, Dr. Thomas Brophy.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And welcome to this very special California Institute for Human Science live event. I am Thomas Brophy, president of CIHS, and I'm just extremely delighted to be able to introduce tonight's 2 featured presenters, Yuval Ron and Dr. Richard Gold. Their work in music, sound, healing, and ancient Chinese wisdom systems is really extraordinary and very much connected with CIHS's mission and the philosophy of CIHS's founder, Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama. And so it's very fitting to have them with CIHS for this 30th anniversary of CIHS special event. Yuval is an extraordinary award-winning composer, director, and musician. His bio is so extensive that I'll just point out my favorite small bit, that is he has been invited to perform meditative music for His Holiness the Dalai Lama and for famous Sufi sheikhs who you would have heard of if you're into Sufism. And we are all fortunate that Yuval has teamed up with Dr. Richard Gold, an extraordinary healer and accomplished educator of traditional Chinese medicine, who happens to also be a trustee of CIHS as well. Together, they create an amazing sound healing series that is grounded in both ancient science and modern physiology research. Tonight is going to be an amazing event. And I understand there are going to be some amazing connections with the natural world as well as the human being that we are going to see. So now it's time for the main event.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Can you hear me, everybody? Okay. It's such an honor to be here and to share the platform with my dear friend and creative partner, Yuval Ron. And welcome to all our guests. And it's a pleasure to represent CIHS, which is a leading, cutting-edge graduate school, creating educational opportunities that are unlike anywhere else I know of in the world. Sound healing really is probably is the most ancient aspect of healing. And interestingly, it is one of the most currently researched areas of healing on the planet. What was seen as a fringe pursuit until recently now is being explored at MIT, at Harvard, at Stanford, at Johns Hopkins, at Berkeley. It's really become quite the exciting field of endeavor. Nicole, can we start with our screen share? Sound healing has a rich and ancient history. There is evidence in archaeological sites in Australia where over 40,000 years ago, the Aborigines were using the didgeridoo in healing ceremonies and spiritual ceremonies. In India, there's evidence, and it's been a continuing tradition within the Siddha Yoga program, or following, of over 8,000 years where palm fronds, where mantras have been inscribed, and every couple of centuries they're renewed. In Chinese healing, in Chinese medicine, we have reference to sound and healing in the oldest text of Chinese medicine, which dates from about 236 BC. In the Western world, in our Judeo-Christian traditions, one of the most significant individuals in that tradition, King David, he wasn't born to royalty. He was brought to the court because King Saul was suffering terrible paranoid nightmares and anxiety. And David himself was just a simple shepherd. He was of no status at all. But he was known to play the lyre, which is a plucked instrument of approximately 10 strings. Sometimes translations would say it's the harp. And he was brought in to soothe King Saul. And then they say the rest is history. He became the most famous king in Old Testament story, and his lineage goes all the way into the New Testament. So this is a very ancient tradition. It enwraps all cultures around the world, and it offers a unique insight into human history and human behavior. Go to the next slide, please. So this is an evolving field. Even though it's ancient, it's an evolving field. So let's look at some of the ideas that we can use towards a definition. And we use sound healing. Now, sound healing is not going to be limited to music, and it's not going to be limited necessarily to auditory functions. But it's a practice that uses vibrations. And this is critical, the vibrations that are transmitted through the body and brain in order to relax and create harmony in the mind and body. And we're seeing now with modern science, it actually has the ability to normalize imbalances and synchronize cells' frequencies back to their natural, healthy state of vibrational resonance. Evidence from modern science shows that we actually see sound and vibration affecting the proteins at the DNA level of the cell and in cell walls. So this is quite remarkable. And these sort of ideas were theorized in ancient traditions, but now with modern science, we can actually look deep into the body and see these phenomena. Next slide, please. Clearly, the brain is one of the sites where the most dramatic effect of sound and vibration occurs. And it's happening in three dynamic areas, which is these three dynamic areas of our unique brains, which is bioelectric, which is the neural pathways. This is the shooting of energy throughout our brains. Simultaneously, there's physiologic components of the brain in the endocrine system, which we know of as endorphins, which are the natural opiates, serotonin, which is mood altering, which is and also dopamine. That we see effects and balancing of these essential hormones in the brain through sound therapy. And very interestingly, we see the brain structure itself being affected by sound. And we've seen it's being affected by meditation. So this is extraordinarily interesting. And again, rather than just empirically thinking about these possibilities or people reporting these effects in their own bodies, we see in scientific research now these things actually happening. Next slide, please. One of the main areas that's been looked at with sound is its effect on the stress in the body and mind. And sound healing clearly counters stress response. And it takes us out of a sympathetic fight or flight into a parasympathetic relaxation mode. And when we can get into a parasympathetic relaxation, or a yin state, we say in Chinese philosophy, there's a dramatic physiologic change that cascades through the whole body. We can see a slowing of heart rate, reducing blood pressure, and we can actually see immune function change and healing occur in the body. With reduced anxiety and pain, we actually promote memory and attention improvements. And this is very, very critical for a cognitive function. Next slide, please. So as a meditator, we can, personally speaking, and this has been reported over and over again, that music can facilitate meditation, certain kinds of music, and I know for particularly the kind of music that we create, it can actually change our thought patterns, and not only change our thought patterns in mood, but actually begin to open up space between thoughts, so we can enter into a quiet space, potentially even a blissful space. And this is something that all meditators seek. I think probably all people seek to get out of self-talk. Most self-talk that we go through is harmful to us. We're self-critical. We destabilize ourselves. We put ourselves down. And if we can shift this, and we see that music, and we see this with all sorts of music. It doesn't have to be music, meditative type music, or music that's healing per se, but music has the capacity to change the vibe in the room and change the vibe in our minds and bodies. We see that music can purposely shift the focus of our attention from our brains, and we can become more heart-centered. And heart rate variability, which is an important development in science, is demonstrating this over and over. Music is not just limited to our minds and our intellect, but really can be a whole body experience. In fact, we know that every cell of our body responds to sound. And this is a reason to actually at times to actually listen to music through good speakers too, because when we just use headphones, we're sort of limiting the efficacy and potentiality of sound and music on our body. And music helps us how we actually engage in cognitive experiences. It helps us with our creativity. It helps us with our focus. It helps us with our memory. And this is extremely, extremely valuable. Next slide, please. An emerging idea in healing has to do with resonance. And resonance is directly related to sound, directly correlates to sound. And we can define this as specific vibrations. And certainly sound is part of this, but it could also be light, it can be touch, or with the kinesthetic, which we see in the efficacy and healing of massage and therapeutic touch. And even the intention of our minds constitute information that can be transferred to one person to another. And as a clinical practitioner, I do know that this is a core part of my ability to help others in treatment. And it really requires me as a healer and all of us that do healing work to get to a place where we're able to find a quiet place in ourselves to become a resonant energy body, so we can transfer information, actually transfer our breathing rate, transfer the quiet of our minds, transfer the focus of our intentionality. And this is how we change information exchange. We're able to shift the vibration of our patients, of our loved ones, of our children. And this is critical. It's becoming more and more critical, and research has shown now, especially in advanced research and placebo effect, that it is the dynamic relationship between the healer and the recipient of the healing, which has as much to do with the efficacy and power of treatment as the drug that might be prescribed or the procedure that might be made. Next slide, please. A couple of quotes of note to share. The great Albert Einstein. Concerning matter, we have been all wrong. What we have called matter is energy, whose vibration has been so lowered or slowed down as to be perceptible to the senses. This is critical as far as our evolution individually, is to recognize, first of all, that energy and matter are the same thing. They're just vibrating, their potentialities are different, but there's no distinction per se, except for in terms of vibratory speed. But our senses, most of my life, really, I'll just speak for myself and not make a generalization here. I really felt that my senses took me from my core and opened up the vastness of what was around me. And what we understand more and more now is our senses are filters, that they limit the amount of information we're taking in. Science thinks we take maybe 5, maybe 10% of the information that's surrounding us into our awareness. And part of this is to not recognize that the energetic potential of each of us, and that we really are swirling dynamic resonance energy beings as much as we are this physical matter that we call ourselves. And in ancient India, so much of this was understood millennia ago, where they say nada, or vibrations or sound, is Brahma, creation or God. And that another way they describe this, they say that the universe itself is sound and vibration. Next slide, please. Now, Chinese medicine, which has been my field of practice for the last 44 years, embedded at the root of Chinese medicine and the character of Chinese medicine, the Chinese language, is composed of 2 parts. And the top part is a Chinese radical itself, and it indicates grass or grass-related plants, including herbs, and herbs are a critical component of Chinese medicine. And the lower part is a Chinese character of its own, and it means music as well as delight and happiness. So we see that even just the idea of what is medicine in traditional Chinese medicine includes sound and vibratory healing and music. Next slide, please. There's a seminal text in Chinese medicine, the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine, or the Neijing. This is a written compilation dating from about 236 BC. So again, it's a written compilation from 2 millennia before the birth of Christ. So there's an oral tradition that probably goes back a couple millennia before them. And this really represents the starting point for the continuous study, practice, and development of medicine in East Asia. It's a fundamental doctoral source of Chinese medicine for these millennia. It's still studied, revered, and referenced to this day in Chinese medical schools. And correspondence of musical tones and elements is deeply embedded. It's actually written up in the text, as we'll see as we go to the next slide. So in Chinese medicine, we have 5 elements: earth, metal, wood, fire, and water are these elements. And in Western music, we have 7 notes. In Chinese, we have 5 notes, and these correspond to these 5 elements. And we actually have correlation between the tone, the organs, and the elements. This is very specific, and again, this comes from this ancient text. And this is how we are able to use vibration and sound to affect the energy of these elements, then the organs and the meridians and the correspondences. And this was critical in the creation of our 6 Healing Sounds music that Yuval composed for us, where he composed for Earth in the key of A. It was just for specific. So we were actually, we're creating an energy field based on this ancient tradition. Next slide, please. In Chinese medicine, we say that music is the bridge from the human body to the entire universe. And as I mentioned, each element and organ has its own corresponding nature and sound. And this relationship is part of the unique holistic understanding of Chinese medicine from its earliest days. Next slide, please. Now, this is going to be the participatory part of our time together with the 6 healing sounds. This is the 5 elements and the 5 notes, the 5 tones. And then the 6 healing sound is an integrative sound, which in Chinese medicine we call the sanjiao, which we'll come to in a few minutes. And this first appeared in a book from about 420 to 589 AD called On Caring for the Health of the Mind and Prolonging the Lifespan. So we're looking at something about 1600 years old. Next slide, please. Later on in the Ming Dynasty, which was a very period of high culture in China, Qigong or breath exercises were combined with the healing sounds. And what we know now from modern research is when you do physical movement with focused sound or meditation, that the effect on the mind-body is enhanced. And the Qigong exercises I'll be showing, we'll be sharing together tonight, are very easy and simple. You don't have to feel intimidated at all by this. Okay, next slide, please. So we're going to do the 6 healing sounds together. The music that you hear in the background is the music Yuval composed for the lungs, or the metal element in the key of D. What I'd like to invite you to do, let's see if we can create an energy field between us here, is we're going to put our hands over our lung area, and we're going to breathe down into our lungs, send light and love to our lungs. And we're going to breathe in courage and righteousness, justice and detachment. And we're going to let go of grief, sadness, depression, and sorrow. And we can affirm that you are just, you are deliberate, and you are assertive. And the healing sound is and the sound can be made out loud, it can be quiet, chanted, or it could be very silent in your own heart. And the exercise looks like this. We're gonna breathe in coming up. And then when we get to the chest height, we're gonna push out with the hands and open up the chest. And as we lower the arms back down, we're gonna say the sound. Listen to the music for a moment as we breathe in, coming up again. Reaching out, pressing out, pressing out. As we lower. Let's take a moment to hold the area of our lungs again. See if you've already beginning to feel any sort of shift. Next slide, please. The water relates to the kidneys. I'd like to invite you to bring your hands to your lower lumbar region over the physical kidneys. Smile down to your kidneys. We're in the key of A. As we breathe in, see if you can bring your breath into your palms where you actually feel your breath massaging your kidneys. We're going to breathe in gentleness, alertness, stillness, and gratitude, letting go of fear, anxiety, shock, and stress. We're going to affirm that you are resolute, you are courageous, and you are graceful. This exercise, and the healing sound is going to be woo, woo, just woo, woo, woo. We're going to use our hands and grip around the knees simultaneously. This is fine to be doing seated. You're going to grip around your knees and you're going to pull in from your knees. You're going to lift your chin. You're going to pull in through the perineum like a Kegel exercise. Chin up. And then as we relax out, we're going to do woo. Again, breathing in, pulling at the knees, pulling up from the perineum, chin up. And as we relax, our breath out. Very good. Next slide, please. Let's bring our hands to under the right breast area to the liver area. We're in the key of E. Our healing sound is we're going to breathe in kindness and generosity, forgiveness, self-expansion, and identity. Letting go of anger, aggression, and depression. Affirming that you are kind, that you are benevolent, and you are authentic. All of these word images I'm presenting are straight out of traditional Chinese medicine. Smiling down to your liver. Our livers work really hard for us. Let the arms come to the side. As we breathe in, we're going to reach up, interlock the hands, rotate the hands to the palms to the sky, and we're going to side lateral stretch to the left. And this opens up the whole liver area and invigorating the energy there. As we come back up straight and exhale. And one more time, breathing in. Interlock. Side lateral stretch. Upright. Breath out. Let's come back to the liver for a moment. Just breathe down to your liver. Next slide, please. We're going to place our hands over our heart. We're in key of G. We're going to breathe in love and joy, happiness, honor, sincerity, creativity, and enthusiasm. We're going to let go of impatience, arrogance, hastiness, cruelty, and violence, affirming that you are appropriate, you are responsible, and you are loving. Our exercise will be a mirror image of what we just did for the liver, which is we're going to breathe in, coming up, interlock, rotate, side lateral stretch to the right, opening up the heart area. Come back to vertical, and as you breathe out, we're going to go ha, ha. And once more, breath in. Interlock, lateral stretch to the right. Back up. And ha. Let's give a little more love to the heart. Next slide, please. Now, if you do like this and you want to adopt it to your practice, you can definitely spend longer with each of the elements. It can become part of a morning ritual. We're the earth element, which is digestion, assimilation. We look at the spleen and stomach and pancreas. We're in key of C. Let's bring our hands now down. If we have the right hand over the stomach by the left ribs, and the left hand will actually be where your physical spleen is, and this will cover some of the physical pancreas also. Let's breathe in fairness and openness, compassion, centering, and balance. Letting go of worry, anxiety, and pity. Let's affirm that we are sincere, you are faithful, and you are loyal. The sound is going to be a guttural sound. It's going to be, it's like a little bit of a bullfrog. It's not so much an exercise as a compression. We're going to come under the ribs here and compress in and lean forward a little bit, breathing in. And as we come upright, letting go, making the sound. Very earthy sound. Compress again. Coming up. And the sixth healing sound is for the, next slide please, for the triple warmer San Jiao, which is an integrative energy. I invite you to have one hand in the heart and one in the below the navel area, getting a sense of the whole from the throat down into the pelvic area. This is a unique concept in Chinese medicine of energy that integrates all the other energies. Interestingly, this is a very important part of Dr. Motoyama, the founder of CIHS research. When I met with him in Japan many years ago, he emphasized the absolute importance of balance in the triple warmer. It's a fire element. We're back in G. The healing sound is he. Let's breathe in balance, integrity, harmony, calmness, and fluidity. Let go of sluggishness, congestion, and stagnation. Know that you are appropriate, you are fluid, and you are harmonious. Our exercise, we'll have the hands palm up below the navel, and as we breathe in, we're going to come up to the heart, into the throat area. As we press down, breathing out, we're going to make the healing sound. And again, breath in. Pressing down. I invite you now to take a minute, just close your eyes and do a little self-inventory of how you feel now as compared to when we start. And these exercises are yours now. I'm happy to turn the mic over to Yuval now, and we'll have the next slide.
Thank you. I would like to share with you my perspective about one of the ways that Dr. Gold and myself have been working on providing sound and music that can entrain the brain. And brain entrainment is a field that has to do with feeding pulsation through the two ears and creating a third sound wave in the brain in order to slow down the brain waves and to induce deep states of meditation or creativity or calm or sleep. And I was introduced to this art of and science of brain entrainment back in 1990. It was my first experience with composing for researchers and healers, and that was when I just finished music school in Boston. I went to Berklee College of Music and I studied film scoring and the art of providing music scores for films. And the pioneer researcher Robert Monroe from the Monroe Institute in Virginia was looking for film composer who could bring the knowledge of psychoacoustics, which we're going to talk about soon, which is a science that very much used by film composers to manipulate the emotions of the audience in the film theater. Robert Monroe wanted that art and science to be used for his new products that he called hemisync sound. And hemisync sound was a technique that he developed to feed two different frequencies of vibrations through the two different ears of the listener using headphones. And he researched the various vibrations that occur in the brain and only in the brain because of those two vibrations that are being fed, and how that affect the psychological state of the listener. Please, let's go to the next slide. So researchers have found that our brain vibrate and have a resonance in different frequencies in different times. And it's in the old days, 30 years ago, when I started in this field with Robert Monroe, they thought that the whole brain is going from one vibration to another. Over the last 15 years, researchers got more sophisticated, where they found that there's different areas in the brain that vibrate in different frequencies. But these frequencies are split to a couple of states. The gamma states, this is the highest frequency of 30 to 100 cycles a second. And this is really a new state that was just discovered over the last 20 years. The gamma state. We didn't know about it before, but nobody really knows what it's associated with. There's some speculation that it could be related to the state of intuition, improved connectivity in the brain, perhaps a sense of a divine love or a connectivity to an energy biofield, a sense of oneness. So this is still in early phase of research. The state of beta, which is 13 to 30 cycles a second, this is the kind of mind state that we are in right now. I'm talking, I'm analyzing, you're listening, we are all in the intellectual mode of consciousness, and our brain is vibrating right now in a beta frequency, which would sound, if you would listen to your brain vibrating right now, it would be so fast, it would sound like a buzz, it would sound like zzz. It's so fast. I can't even produce anything like the gamma state. The gamma state is way faster than that. Then if we would take 10 slow breaths, we would slow ourselves down and we would calm ourselves. We would still be awake, but calm, like at the end of the exercise that Dr. Gold just led us to. We would then be in the alpha state, which is slower vibration. It's 9 to 13 hertz approximately. And that is where we are calm and awake. It's a very pleasant calmness and relaxation. And that would sound like okay. Next slide, please. If we slow our brain further, we go to the theta state, and that's 4 waves, 4 vibration a second to 8 vibration a second. And that is relatively very slow. And that is where the meditator brain is. That's what's happening when you go into a creative mode, where a writer or a poet or a composer or a painter creates in a very deep creative state of mind, where they can't even notice time passing, they can't even notice what's going on around them. They're so deeply in the creative state. It's very similar to the meditator state of mind, and that is where the brain vibrates in approximately vibration like this. And then if you slow your brain even further, which Tibetan monks could do, when they go into a very, very deep meditation or a very deep state of sleep with no dreams. That state is the delta state, and it's so slow, it's 2 to 4 cycles a second. If you go slower, you're dead. So this is basically as far as human can go with slow down the brain. This is the deepest state, and it would sound like to almost like a heartbeat, but our brain becomes like the heart as far as the vibration and the sound, the pulsation. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Here you see a demonstration of the sounds that I made with my voice, just improvising for you to get you a feel. Here you have a visual representation. You can see the beta waves, how many more and how busy the beta waves are when our brain is thinking. And then in the alpha waves, when our brain is more calm and relaxed, you have less waves. And then the theta waves in the meditation or light sleep or in a creative mode, deep creative mode, you see you have less vibration, and the delta wave has the least amount of vibration. Next slide, please. So how can we use sound to bring people to the deep state of meditation, creativity, and deep sleep? We actually can get their brains, our brains, to go there with feeding the brain slow vibrations, musical vibrations sometimes, through the left ear and through the right ear. And the way it is being done is creating a third wave in the brain, a wave that doesn't exist outside of the head of the listener. It doesn't exist in the reality outside of the brain of the listener. But it happened that our brain produces the frequency that is the gap between what we give the person through the right ear and what we give the person through the left ear. And if we were to give 200 hertz vibrations through the right ear and 210 vibrations through the left ear, the difference between the two is 10 cycles vibration, 10 hertz, and that the wave that's going to appear in the brain of the listener and only in the brain of the listener. And since the brain would be vibrating in 10 hertz, their whole brain waves state will start synchronizing to 10 hertz, because we found out, researchers found out, that humans, and not just humans, all living beings, and even things like pendulum grandfather clocks and crickets and elephants and people, tend to synchronize to a pulse that is fed to them from the environment. So, for example, if you go to a jazz club and the band plays a very fast swing tune, you're going to notice that a lot of people in the space go, they move their feet, they move their hands, they just synchronize to the music. And then the band goes into a slow ballad, and you see people in the audience start snapping or moving the feet or moving slower. We want to sync to the music. We want to sync to the pulse that is fed to us through music and through the environment. It happens to elephants. It happens to crickets. And if you take 2 pendulum clocks and each one of them swing the pendulum in a different tempo, and you put them next to each other, after a while they will start synchronizing their pendulum swing because of the natural vibration through the air that one wants to conform to the other. So you have to listen through headphones in order to have this brain entrainment technology to work. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Now, Robert Monroe and other researchers found that if we can slow down the brain to induce relaxation through this technology, we could get people to experience reduced stress and anxiety. We can increase the concentration and motivation and creativity, confidence. Even there have been some studies showing long-term memory that was improved when you fed a lot of beta waves, which is the intellectual and analytical state of mind. It can support deeper meditation. It can help sleep. And so researchers now are using these brain entrainment techniques to help healing and well-being of various different people who are using brain entrainment and binaural beats. Next slide, please. Back to you, Dr. Gold.
Thank you, Yuval. That was great. So in our work together with Yuval on meta-mindfulness music, in the 14 years we've been producing music together, we were using brain entrainment specifically to facilitate deeper and deeper meditative states. So we were going from beta down into delta and theta, through alpha. That was really our focus, and we had tremendous response and good feedback. And what we do as a partnership is we use acoustic musicians to create our themes. We don't just use computer-generated sounds, because we find that the vibratory nature of computer-generated sounds are not equivalent. Even though they sound the same, they're not the equivalents of an acoustic musician. So this is what we were doing and loving it. We were exploring Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine and Buddhism in different productions. About 18 months ago, interestingly, I was invited to a lunch by President Thomas Brophy of CIHS to meet two individuals, Jeffrey Martin and Sanjay Manchada, who I'd never met, who turned out to be leading experts in sound and consciousness studies. And what seemed to be just a casual meeting of sorts became pretty much a life-changing event for me, and then my work with Yuval. Because Sanjay at one point turned to me and said, 40 hertz. There's a little more embellishment, but he said, keep your eye on 40 hertz, which is in gamma. Again, no one really talked about gamma. Gamma's, if we're talking, you're listening, I'm talking, we're in beta. Simultaneously, this gamma's there, and this is maybe where intuition or synchronicity of thought, or you think of someone that you haven't thought of for a while and they call you in the next minute. These sort of things are happening, but it's not quantified or qualified really in science yet. But within the wide range of gamma, very specifically 40 hertz, not 39, not 41, is literally a mystical, magical number, which has dramatic effect on consciousness and brain health. Because what we know now that we're looking at, and this is where you see some really interesting research, and I'll briefly touch on some of what's happening, that neurons of our brain like to fire together, and they love to connect at 40 hertz. And what we've seen now, because with most Alzheimer's research, there's been a tremendous emphasis on the buildup of TAUs and amyloids in the brain, which are physical effects that make the brain sluggish and not function well, and we lose memory, we lose awareness. But with Alzheimer's, there's also something happening bioelectrically with the neurons, and that's that fewer neurons are firing at 40 hertz. So what scientists and people like us have begun to understand is if we can restore circuits so they fire at 40 hertz, maybe we can help the brain restore health. And that's absolutely what's happening. And it's been happening in controlled research. So again, most research and certainly drug development has been on the physical brain. And what we're looking at, and increasingly science is looking at, leading edge science is how are we going to affect the electrical or the neurons? Just as a side note, we see the brain, especially mood altering drugs, are affecting the brain too. That's the physiologic brain and the hormonal brain. We see serotonin uptake inhibitors, we see dopamine, we see opiates, we see all these things which dull the brain. They don't really bring an increased consciousness. Next slide, please. So sound does this, light does this, and we see sonic beds being built where there's a vibration that comes from like a massage or a lazy boy chair at 40 hertz. And Yuval and I are mainly focused on auditory. And we also recognize that to just listen to 40 hertz, just like listening to other oscillations of beta and alpha and things like that, it doesn't make it a pleasant experience. So a lot of our work is to create a pleasant musical experience, and then just subliminally within the beautiful sound to do our brain entrainments. So this is a study that did light flickering with 20 young adults, and they found increased overall brain oscillation power, especially in the area responsible, the visual area, for the occipital region responsible for visual. So we see that a light flicker, but again, to sit in a room and see light flicker is not necessarily a pleasant experience. It's fast, but what we see with fluorescent lights, which is a light flicker, it's not at 40 hertz, we see that can be detrimental to studies in students and schools. Next slide, please. This is why listening to 40 hertz tones, it actually dramatically reduced the amount of beta amyloids in the auditory cortex, which processes sound, as well as the hippocampus, where memory is located near the auditory cortex. This is research done in 2019. This is very, very interesting and very profound. We dramatically reduced beta amyloid, so we're seeing creating a vibration in the brain actually affects the physical brain too. Next slide, please. This was where randomized controlled trial, this was a very scientifically designed, randomized with a placebo-controlled study in treating fibromyalgia. Now, fibromyalgia, if you suffer from it or somebody you know suffer from it, or if you're a clinician and you deal with people with fibromyalgia, it is a terrible situation to find yourself in. You have systemic pain, and various drugs are used which have side effects, and to come up with a non-drug approach to fibromyalgia is revolutionary. And they found that preliminary findings showed evidence that gamma frequency rhythmic vibroacoustic stimulation can decrease fibromyalgia symptoms and ease associated comorbidities, which is usually going to be sleep deprivation is one of the main ones, and depression. And so this opens new avenues for further investigation. This is an extremely rich field to explore. Because if we can help people with fibromyalgia in a non-pharmaceutical way, we're going to have dramatic improvement of life for people. Now, just a moment to talk about sleep too, because we all know sleep's important, but one of the interesting things that modern science has shown us is that when we sleep, our brain changes shape. And this whole phenomenon is now called as glymphatics, where our brains change shape and small rivulets of lymphatic drainage occur. And this is one of the ways our brain gets rid of the toxins, the metabolic byproduct of brain activity, which lead to amyloid and tau accumulations in the brain. So sleep, this only occurs during deep sleep. So things like with fibromyalgia, where you have sleep disturbance, you get a secondary benefit by increasing sleep. You increase sleep, you increase glymphatics, and then you're going to increase brain health. This was a study done in 2019 also. I didn't really find anything really current to share with you tonight. I think things are cooking, but they're not being reported yet. The next slide, please. This was a intervention on depression and anhedonia, which is inability to feel pleasure. And this is where you did 30 minutes 5 times a week in the gamma range. It wasn't specifically to 40 hertz, but we saw benefit occur. We saw significant changes in baseline measurements for depression and sleep quality, quality of life, and anhedonia. So this is a another I keep trying to come up with more superlatives, but we see we can actually relieve depression and associated symptoms with a music-based therapy. And music-based therapy, one thing that's so magnificent about it, it's something that people can do in their own homes on their own time. They don't have to be in a medical facility. They don't have to feel that they're being a patient at that time. They're just a person, but it's purposeful music. It's music that's being used purposely for therapeutic reasons. Next slide, please. So MIT has been a leading place of this particularly 40 hertz research. This was a study done by mice, and this was reported widely in both scientific publications and in the press. And we saw the improvement of cognitive and memory impairments similar to those that we see in Alzheimer's patients. So again, this is very preliminary. We need to start doing this with human subjects. We need to see funding available for that. But I believe this is going to happen more and more. Next one, please. So to sum up, this is a brainwave stimulation may improve Alzheimer's symptoms. It's non-invasive. It helps reduce amyloid plaques. And this was published in the MIT News Office. This is very important. Next one, please. And further ideas for research would be with major depression. There's been preliminary studies with Parkinson's syndrome. This Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I found this being studied. Why I included this is because this is an inherited genetic disorder. And if we think that we can, if there's the potential to change a genetic disorder with sound, that's huge. Because we usually think that genes are our destiny, but that's not necessarily so. Temporomandibular joint pain, TMJ, and jaw pain, very common. We've seen preliminary research with that. And we've seen a vibration of increased bone cell density. So this might be a way of helping reduce osteoporosis, which is going to be very, very important, especially for the elderly. Next slide, please. Okay, back to you, Yuval.
Okay, thank you. This is amazing. I wanted to share with you a little bit of the basic impact of sound and music on our mind and on our brain and on our psychology. And that's something that I studied in Boston as part of my studies to be able to be a film composer. And one of the major tools for a film composer is to understand and to utilize the scientific study of psychoacoustic, which means how do we interpret sound? How does our brain interpret sound? And that is how film composers manipulate the feelings and emotions and the thoughts of the audience. So we can make the audience think that this movie is going to be a terrible tragedy by using certain dark and slow sound. We can make the audience like the shark, and we can make the audience fear the shark, depending with the kind of music that we use. And you know the famous music that John Williams wrote for Jaws, Steven Spielberg, great first hit, Jaws, and the music was the most scary thing in this movie because the music made you really fear that shark. And this is a whole study. I'm not going to get into it, but this is a way to use sound to make you think and feel in the way that the director wants you to feel and think. And that is the job of the film composer. It's actually been done every day when you go to see a movie or when you watch a TV show or anything on the web. Any screen, any video game is depending on that. And so I've been using that science of psychoacoustic to be a tool in the healing music that I've been composing for certain doctors and healers. And it's a very similar way. I talk with the doctors and the scientists, and they tell me in which state of emotion and thoughts that they want the patients to be. And I know how to lead that patient to that emotional state and state of mind with music. So in that sense, some of my film music knowledge and science come into play in the therapeutic music. Next slide, please. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we're listening to music, because this is very, very, very important. Because if music is going to be the future medicine, music and sound will be the future medicine. That is one of the themes that I push in many of my talks and interviews. If that is going to happen more and more, it's very important how you take in the medicine, because if you don't take the medicine right, the medicine will not going to work, or it will not have a very full impact on you. So let's look at the way we used to listen to music. So first of all, we used to listen to music live, and there's nothing like live music, because live music vibrate all over your body, and your ears and your brain are much more sophisticated than a microphone. It doesn't matter how good the microphone is. Take the best microphone in the world, okay? It can be a German mic that costs $20,000, and you plug it to the most expensive recording gear. It doesn't matter. It's not as sophisticated as your brain and your ears and your nervous system and your body, the way your body takes in vibration in live concert. That's why people love live concerts. There's nothing like a live concert. Now, the second best thing after a live concert is a vinyl record, which is the old way, the way the record business started about 100 years ago, 120 years ago. People invented a way to record vibrations through a microphone and print it on a wax master. Out of the wax master, they created vinyl copies, and the vinyl copies delivered those vibrations that the microphone picked up. Not that your ears and your body and your brain picked up. The little microphone picked up some vibration, and those vibrations coming to you home through a vinyl, and you listen to it through the turntable, and you have maybe 80% of the vibrations that you would feel in the live concert, but it's still really good. Then, about 40, 50 years ago, digital audio was invented, and vinyls went out of fashion, and we start listening to music on digital compact discs. And what digital sound was, it was a digitizing of the real analog sound wave. The vibration in the air is analog vibration. It's a real wave that travels through the air. With CDs, with digital sound, they measured the sound wave that travels through the air to your ear, and they created something that looks like the wave, but with numbers of 1 and 2 that created like little steps, like just digitized version of the real wave. And that is what CDs are and digital sound is, which is not exactly as the real wave of sound that you get in live concert or through vinyl. So we got a little compromise. We got two compromises now from the real thing. We compromise a little bit when we go to vinyl because of the microphone. We go further compromise sound on CDs, but very few people can really hear the difference between CDs and vinyls. There may be 10 people in Hollywood that can hear the difference. I can tell you that I can hear it, and the guy from Steely Dan is famously, you know, the band Steely Dan, the keyboard player, I forget his name right now, but he's the writer of the band Steely Dan. Back in the 80s, he kept insisting and telling everybody, no, the CD doesn't sound exactly like the vinyl. I can hear the difference. And people said, no, what are you talking about? It sounds exactly the same. There's very, very few people in the world that can hear the difference, but they can hear it. Then the MP3 technology was invented in order to facilitate streaming sound and music through the internet. And that really ruined music, because MP3 technology is a reduced, compressed, low quality, low resolution impression of the digital sound. And it's leaving some of the music out. They actually take the recording, the digital recording of the orchestra or the piano music or the voice of the singer. They take it and they throw away some of the sound vibration digital representation, and they thin it so it's going to be able to be streamed on the internet. And that's what all the young people are listening to, and that's what everybody now are starting to listen to, is to a reduced sound vibration representation of the real thing. And that is exactly what we want you to avoid when you go to listen to sound healing music, music for meditation, music for yoga, music for healing, music for medicine, for therapeutic. Don't listen to MP3. You have to get the full sound. And the full sound on the internet is called wave files. These are exactly the same as the digital sound as you have on the CDs. So let's look at the next slide, please. And you can see now, let's go to the next slide. You can see a visual representation in the next slide, please. Okay, wave files are the one I'm talking about it. Let's go to the next file, please. And now you see in your own eyes how much information you have on MP3. On the left on the screen, you see you have a couple of fat lines, black lines, and then you look on the right side of the screen, the wave file has more yellow lines because there's more information there. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, this is a wonderful visual slide because you can see very clearly on the left, this is the MP3 on the left. And on the right, you see the wave file. There's so much more information. And every little red line and pink line and black and white lines, these are all representations of vibrations, of sound vibrations. So MP3 is a watered down, really watered down version of the real thing. And it's like if you had to take 30 drops of a particular herb, and put it in water and drink it for your therapy. Instead of 30 drops, you take only 5 or 10 drops and put it in the water, and then you drink, and then you wonder, why it doesn't work, why this herb doesn't work, because you water it down way, way, way too much. And that's what's happening when we're listening to MP3. So there are some websites on the internet that sell music in wave files. There's Bandcamp, metamindfulnessmusic.com provides music in wave files. CD Baby have a little bit. There's Tidal have some music in high quality, and it's really a small niche market because most people don't know about it and don't notice it and are not educated about it, which is a real tragedy when you consider that we went from live sound, full sound impact, to vinyl, to CDs, down to MP3s. And now all we are trying to do is to get you back to digital sound, but full digital sound. And if you can get it on vinyl, get it on vinyl. And if you can go to a live concert, go to a live concert. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I'd like to invite you to just relax and experience sound for a little bit, so we get out of our heads and the intellectual place that we are in, analyzing and thinking. So one of the projects that Dr. Gold invited me to work on was the Doshas of our Vedic medicine. And we found in our research that a very important sound, sacred sound of Om, is used in our Vedic medicine, and the three different doshas, the three states of energies, are associated with the A, U, and parts of Om. And Om is the sound of the universe. It's the foundation of the universe according to Hindu philosophy. Let's go to the next slide, please. So while most people chanting Om with the sound Om, actually the real purists and the real knowledgeable people are conserving the ancient sound that Om was not really Om. Om is a four-part sound. It has an A, an U, and a M. And then there's a moment of silence. That's the fourth part. And the A, U, and M are associated with the three energy conditions called the doshas, which are the foundations of our Vedic medicine of India and of yoga. Next, please. So Vata, which is associated with A, is movement. Pitta is the fire element. It's associated with transformation, like digestion is a form of transformation of food. Kapha is structure, cohesion, lubrication. It's a mix of water element and earth element. And Kapha is associated with the sound in the Aum. Next slide, please. These are all related to health and yoga. So I'd like to invite you to chant along. First, we're going to chant Vata, then we're going to chant Pitta, then we're going to chant Kapha. The Vata, to cultivate and to balance the Vata energy, is we do a long A, a short U, and a short M. And I'm going to conduct on you. If you see me, if you can see me on the side of the main screen, that would be great. I'm going to get to the music. Let's see if I can get the music going. So this is the music that I composed for Vata, to cultivate Vata. So we're going to take a deep breath in. Then we're going to take the sound of the recording. Again, a long A, a short U, and a short M. Deep breath in. Try to take the tone from the music. The tonal center is important for Vata, and we can make it a little louder, the music. Okay. Okay. One more time, and breathe in. One more time, breathe in. So these chanting sound cultivate the energy of Vata, which is movement, the energy of movement. Then we're going to go to the music of Pitta, which is more fiery, and that is the fire of transformation, either mental or physical. We're going to do a long U. We start with a short A, a long U, and a short M, with the tonal center of the music. So take a deep breath. Breathe in. One last time, breathe in. As you can see, the breath of kapha, the fire breath, that with the long u, creates a lot more friction inside and a lot more heat. It's cultivating heat. While the vata breath earlier cultivates more coolness. Now let's go to the third and last breathing sound for kapha. And kapha is earthy and it's wet earth. And the sound is a short a, short u, and a long m sound. Let's see what that will do. Take a deep breath in. Good. Take a deep breath and listen to the tonal center of the music. Again, one more time, deep breath in. One last time. So as we know, each vibration, each sound vibration affects us differently and resonates differently in our body. And this is a little demonstration of that from the Doshas of our Vedic medicine. Next slide, please.
Okay. Thank you, Yuval.
You're welcome. I think we are at the dessert.
So what's next at Metta Mindfulness Music? And what we're working on now is plant medicine music. We were introduced to a technology, which we'll show you in a bit, which picks up subtle vibrations, electrical changes in plants, and an algorithm in this device translates that into musical notes. And I find this very fascinating. We see the efficacy of herbal medicine made from plants, and has to be something vibratory happening, because that's the nature of plants too, nature of reality. So we became very fascinated by this. Also, we used our 6 healing sounds as an herbal remedy, where, for instance, we use the themes for wood and earth, liver and spleen, stomach, for gastrointestinal problems. And we created a music medicine series based on the 6 healing sounds, and we put this out in the world. And we started to get comments back from people who are hearing it on an app, especially called Insight Timer, that they played the one for abdominal pain and they started to have less abdominal pain. We have sleep remedies where we combine the heart and the fire and the water to harmonize those 2 elements. So we started to see that we could use sound targeted therapeutically. And then we learned about the plant capturing sounds from plants. And so these 2 ideas created a synergy within our hearts and minds. And rather than just do single plants, which have interesting sounds, we decided to work with herbalists to create synergistic medicinal herbal combinations for common problems delivered through sound and music. Next slide, please. So what we use is something called plant wave technology. And you can find this, you can look it up if you like, and it's capturing these vibrations of plants using digital technology. Now, we depart from plant wave technology because their algorithm then uses computer-generated sound, so it's not it becomes more, they use an instrumentation, so it's not just the raw sound. So what we're going to be doing, and are doing, is taking those vibrations and scoring the vibrations of the plants. And then we're going to have acoustic musicians or vocalists sing the vibration or play the vibration of the plants. So we feel it's going to be more authentic, and it's going to have a better vibratory benefit, medicinal and healing benefit. The next slide, please. So here's a little demonstration of what we have. You have a plant, and the plant wave is a Bluetooth technology. And from that, 2 leads, we'll show you in a little bit, 2 leads are then with alligator clips are put on leaves of the plants. And then you either run it through a computer or a mobile device. And then our technician was listening to make sure he was picking up sounds through headphones. So it's pretty straightforward. But there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of intelligence that went into the algorithm and to be able to capture these sounds. Next slide, please. So we're looking at a sonic window into the secret life of plants. And so again, the technology picks up slight electrical variations via 2 electrodes. These are graphed as a wave, which is translated into pitch messages. And this is where then Yuval enters, and he's going to be scoring. We're going to show you a BlackBerry scored here in a moment, and then played by musical instruments. And again, the plant wave technology pushes the sound out with computer-generated sounds, which is pleasant enough, but I don't think we would get the therapeutic effect that we're looking for with that. Other characteristics of the waves change and textural qualities of sounds are captured. And the plant wave gives a continuous stream of pleasing music that gives you a sonic window into the secret life of plants. Next one, please. So we actually had one of our wonderful people that worked with us, a man named Zach Rosenblum, who's a Berkeley School grad also. He became our field director, and we recorded over 100 medicinal plants out in the field, growing right in the earth. We had tremendous cooperation from the LA County Arboretum and Botanical Gardens, which has a huge collection of medicinal herbs. Actually, their chief botanist was so captivated by our project, he drove Zach around in a golf cart so he could capture as many of the plants as possible in a short amount of time. There's the Descanso Gardens, which is near Pasadena. Yuval and his ensemble played a series of concerts there, and he made contacts with the plant people there, and we got permission for Zach to go. And they had things in their collection which weren't available at the LA Arboretum. And we also contacted the Learning Garden, which is a consortium of a school in Venice, California, and 2 acupuncture colleges in the area. And they actually have a growing collection of Chinese herbs. When we started this project, we were going to focus on Chinese herbal medicine because it's the most specific in terms of the synergistic combinations and the percentages of individual herbs in formulas. But there's a dearth of Chinese herbs growing in Southern California. We've discovered a few places up in the Pacific Northwest. Certainly in China, if this project grows enough and we're able to get support, we hopefully will record there too. But we have over 100 medicinal plants. We've got enough to keep us busy for a while. Next slide, please. So this is we worked again with an herbalist. We picked common problems like respiratory problems, headaches, low back pain, urinary problems, and worked with an herbalist who came up with the formula and the percentages in those formulas. And we had the plants we have recorded. And so the project now is to score these and for Yuval to go through the algorithm of Yuval's brain as a composer to come up with something that's musically interesting, that's compelling, and also is going to be therapeutic. So for respiratory, we use basil, we use citrus, we used orange or tangerine were available, mullein, which is well known, Perillia, and sage. We see a basil plant there. The next slide, please. So this is the notes of the blackberry. Yuval did a presentation. Actually, we both zoomed into a Montessori school where Yuval's son was in the class. And Yuval had scored the blackberry, and the teacher had the kids practice their recorders and actually played this. And Yuval's going to play the blackberry for us now.
So this is a clarinet sample that is playing the music, the sound vibration that came out of the blackberry bush when the blackberry bush produced some electrical signals, digesting food, creating food, or whatever the plant is doing, and those vibrations were translated to the notes that you just heard. And now we see the musical notes on the screen, and that is the main theme that comes out of the blackberry, which will be part of that plant's chamber music or symphony, depends where we go with that, or vocal choral piece, you know, for the formula. The blackberry going to go with 4 other plants together, creating a medicinal formula. So this is just one of the voices, one of the songs within the formula.
And something to note, which is all the plants have different sounds. It's not like, oh, it's just a leaf, it's going to make a certain sound, so that, you know, basil is going to sound like sage. It's not that way. They have their own sounds. So the last thing we would like to do is now show you just a short, about 27-second video of what it looked like in the field to do this kind of recording.
Nicole, do you have the video? Okay, here's the video. So you can see the laptop. This is the end of the video. Yeah, let's go from the top. So this is the blackberry bush in the LA Arboretum that we connected the sensors to. And as the camera goes down, you can see, you're going to see the wires below, and the wires are connected. The sensors are connected through those white wires to that little wood box that translate the vibrations into musical sounds, and the musical sounds are being recorded on the laptop. Thank you. I think you're on mute, Dr. Gold. Okay. Thank you very much for being with us. I hope you can hear me. I cannot hear Dr. Gold.
Yeah, I'm here now.
Okay, great. This is a way for you to reach us if you'd like more information about all these wonderful, fascinating explorations. Please email us anytime. You may visit the website Meta with double T, metamindfulnessmusic.com. And I think I saw somebody raise their hands. I think Michael G had a question when I was talking about wave and MP3 or maybe brain entrainment. Nicole, do you think we should go to questions and answers now, or is there something else we should do first?
Yes, well, I just wanted to thank you all for a very inspiring presentation. This was cutting edge, and we learned so much, and we were given practical tools and exercises for healing. And I love that music and sound is the new medicine. It's really inspiring and something to keep our eyes on, and we definitely will keep our eyes on both of you and meta mindfulness music as well. So I hope all of you tonight are able to take away some of these practical tools that you've been given, these exercises, these breathings, these sounds, to be able to incorporate into your routines, as Dr. Gold suggested. And we really hope that you can donate a little bit or a lot, and you can receive the CD set. And we thank you for joining us tonight. So yes, now we will turn it over to a Q&A, and you can pop your questions into the chat box, and Rick and Yuval will be able to go through. We are getting close to our time, so maybe we'll go a few minutes over so we can answer some of your questions. And like I said, you can text easily CIHS to the number 801-801 to donate now. I will also put the link in the chat box. And then I did want to mention that there will be a short survey at the end of our presentation tonight, and we really value your feedback and opinions. So if you could please just take less than a minute to fill that out. We really do take into consideration all of your comments and feedback for our future presentations. So yes, let's go to the Q&A. And let's see, we have, oh yeah, well, we have the recording. Yes, we will send out the recording within a week or so, and it will be posted on our YouTube page. Any other questions that we have for our panelists here tonight? Good. All right, let's see if I can just add this real quick. Good. There we go. I just wanted to add that into the chat box. All right. So if you have already donated, thank you. We really appreciate your help in reaching us, helping us to reach our goal for this 30th anniversary series. We appreciate you. And I also wanted to share my screen just a few more times for upcoming events. But here I do see a question that has come in. Let's see. Oh, good. Oh, it's a comment. Thank you, Chris. Wonderful presentation. Thank you both. Thank you, Chris. It was great to see so many familiar names here tonight. Chris is actually one of our CIHS students, and we appreciate you being here, Chris, and spreading the word through the CIHS community. If you are new to our community, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. And your donation tonight really helps more presentations like this possible. And let me share, actually, speaking of upcoming presentations, we have another presentation from Rick Gold. He's going to be part of a massage continuing education program in October. So that's really exciting that we can have Rick as part of our continuing education community. So if anybody out there are body workers working in the field, this is going to be a great one to look forward to. And then we also have exactly 1 month from today on October 14th, a conversation with another CIHS trustee, Paul Mills, and CHI founder Shamini Jain. So that's going to be another presentation similar to this. Paul Mills has a new book out, as does Shamini Jain, and they are going to discuss healing science and healing ourselves. So very similar in topic as tonight. We really love to provide programming for you that is beneficial to your health and well-being and to our mission at CIHS of mind, body, spirit, consciousness. All right, we have another question coming in from Kenneth. Hi, Kenneth. He's asking, how did Rick and Yuval meet? That's a good question. You guys...
I'll give the short version. Yuval and I were both teaching at Esalen Institute in Big Sur. We were teaching separate workshops, and the universe brought us together there. It was just fortuitous and special. And I made an offhand comment because I had been listening to binaural beats that weren't with music, and it had helped my meditative process. It had become irritative. So I proposed to Yuval, is it possible to bring a high level of musicality to the area of binaural beats and meditative music. And he really liked the challenge. I didn't really know about his background at that point, really. And what we thought would be a one-off project together now has turned into over 100 tracks and almost 15 years of a good friendship and a creative partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, if you think about any other questions that you'd love to send out to Rick and Yuval, you can send us an email and we will get it over to them. And we hope that Rick and Yuval, you will come back and teach us more about what you continue to find in the realm of plant medicine. Very, again, fascinating subject. And we really appreciate your time here, everybody, tonight, especially Rick and Yuval. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
Thank
Nicole.
you.
Hope to see you again in the future, in future workshops and talks.
You as well.
You well, everybody.
Thank you so much,
For
Yuval
having
and Rick.
us. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for having us.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully you can listen to some sounds.